Hey, this is Bijal, and welcome to another episode of Be Epic Daily. And we have a wonderful guest with us today who's talking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, but a very intriguing topic. First of all, Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Bijal. I really appreciate it, and I really hope I can serve your audience well.
Well, I think you will, because this topic I believe is very relevant, very important, and very timely, given what's going on in the world, the chaos that we find ourselves in, especially as entrepreneurs. So, and we're going to talk about the topic of presence and the importance of being present. So being present, how to become present, and also why this was the inspiration for your book, Everyday Awakening. So before we can even get started, let's kind of introduce those who are not familiar with the term presence. What does that kind of mean for you?
To me, presence is really about showing up in the best way possible. It's when we're more awake, more aware, and more conscious of the present moment that we're in, whether we're sharing it with someone else or just with ourselves. And it's really something that we don't realize how not present we are until somebody says something and we didn't even hear it, and they're like, "Did you hear what I said?" And you're thinking to yourself, "No, but how do I not tell them that I know?" Right? We all want the people we're with to be more present with us, yet there are these things that keep us from being present.
Sam, I'd love for there to be an app, right, which could measure our level and intensity of presence. Because if we could calculate how many minutes or hours of the day we're living in the past, how much of the time we're just wandering into the future, normally consumed by worry. For those who are more intentional, maybe strategic planning. But presence is so overlooked. It's not taught in schools. It's rarely talked about in college. And if you some of you may have read the book or heard about the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That was my first introduction to even the concept of presence. Never even even aware of this concept. So how did you first kind of align or become aware of presence, and why did you kind of decide to become kind of a master of this concept?
Well, I can't say I ever decided to become a master of the concept, but I did realize the importance of it over the last several years. I've been introduced to the idea of presence, from just studying different esoteric traditions and studying different spiritual traditions, but I don't think I really understood it or I got it until sometime over the last 6 years. I've been engaged with this indigenous work, this shamanic work, where presence is a very big part of it. And then I learned, as I watched people who've been doing this work a long time, how they pick up on things other people don't, how they can feel the energy and can almost like know what's going on with you, even not even seeing you. I remember I had a conversation with a woman who's been a facilitator of this work for many years, and she works directly with the guy who created this work. And we were just having this phone conversation, and I didn't even say that much. And she said to me, "Oh, it sounds like you're really, really tired. You must be exhausted." And I was like, "Wow, like, yeah, actually I am." And I didn't think anything that I had said over the phone had given her any indication that I was so tired at the time. Yet she was able to pick it up because she was so present with me. So presence isn't just about when somebody is right in front of us. Presence is about how we show up on Zoom, on video, on the phone, on audio, and in any kind of situation. And it really was from doing this deep work that I realized how unpresent I was and how important it was, not important, but how beneficial it is to learn to be more present.
You mentioned a couple of words, and I'm going to flip-flop it for just a second, because you mentioned the deep work in becoming present, but also, if anyone's read the book Deep Work, in terms of how we do our work, presence is required to do deep work, right? So when you are present and focused and immersed, that allows you to do deep work in whatever you're working on in the moment. But if we're not present, and part of our brain is kind of thinking about stuff we've done in the past, and part of it's worrying about stuff that's going to go on in the future, we can't be present. If we can't be present, we really can't do deep work, and thus you're not being very productive or optimizing your time in any given task. So now your book is entitled Everyday Awakening, right? So how did the awareness of presence, the influence of presence, influence this book, and what's the book about?
So the book Everyday Awakening, it's about well, first of all, it's a culmination of the best of the blog that I've been writing on a weekly basis for the last 6 years.
Wow.
And in the beginning, I was writing 2 times a week, and then more recently, in the last 2 years, maybe just once a week. And it was really inspired by Seth Godin, a great marketeer and thought leader who like challenges people to just, share something every day. And for me, every day seemed like a little bit too much, but once a week I would do, and I would use it for my newsletter. And just that practice of every week. And so then what do you write about? For me, it was just writing about what was going on in my life at the time, and not necessarily the details of it, but just what were the insights I got? What was the new perspective that came up for me? So it required me to kind of be present to what was going on in my life. And so as I started, blogging about all these different topics, I mean, everything from relationships to safety to vision to connection, it was really an exercise in just being present and just sitting back and like feeling for a minute before I would sit and start typing, like, what's been going on this week? What kind of conversations have I had? What's kind of come up that felt like there was some value in it to me? And then I would just type about it.
So I'm curious. So did your ability to become present evolve and improve as you started doing this activity of regular blogging?
I would say it definitely supported the evolution of it because it gave me an exercise. It gave me something to do on a weekly basis where no matter what, I had to take a moment and just be present to what's going on because I wanted to share something of value. So then it supported it. And then by being more present, I could be more present with myself, and then I could do deeper work. And the more I peeled back those layers of the emotional onion that we have, and I could find the things that were taking me out of presence, then I could be more present to what's going on. And then I could share things that at least I felt at the time had more value in it, had a different way or had something that most people maybe didn't think about when they encountered a similar situation.
So would you mind sharing, like, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, different businesses. And let's just face it, I believe we're in the midst of chaos, in the midst of confusion. How can we use presence to navigate through these challenges? Because obviously, presence in itself doesn't fix anything, but the state of being present is so critical. But why do you feel it's important that people kind of learn a little bit more about the importance of being present? And then we'll get on to some tips and advice on how to become more present.
So to me, the more present we are, the more empowered we are. Because the more present we are, the more we're able to tap into a lot of different information. And for instance, when we're having a conversation with someone, maybe we notice when we're saying something to them, they're looking down or sideways or up, or maybe they're getting a little fidgety. And so maybe what we're saying to them isn't sitting right or making them uneasy. So when we're very present to it, when we're not present to it, we might see the same thing, but not really understand what it's about. But when we're present to it, then we can connect with that person and feel it ourselves. And then when we feel it ourselves, all of a sudden you start feeling, oh, I feel a little uneasy about something. Oh, I wonder if what I'm saying is making the other person uneasy. So it's a very strong place to come from, because it helps us to really connect, whether it's one person or a whole group of people. It doesn't matter. Being present is really, how can I say it? It's like one of the great gems that doesn't take a tremendous strategy. You don't have to learn a new technology. What it requires, though, is for us to understand what's going on inside of us, so that when we're really present to what's going on inside of us, then we can be more present to another person. And the reason why I feel it's so important, more important today than ever before, is something a friend of mine said to me once on a phone conversation, someone I hadn't talked to for a while, and I talked to them during the summertime. And this woman, she practices transcendental meditation, TM. And she said, Sam, for people like you or me, when we can't go outside, we can go inside. We're able to be present and look inside of us. But a lot of people don't have that ability. They haven't been taught, or there's so much going on. They're just uneasy going inside. Yet this time is the perfect time to really go inside and be with ourselves and see, like, what is uneasy within us, what's causing us to feel uncomfortable, what are we worried about, what are we nervous about. And then the more we do that, then once we are able to get back and be with each other, and things open up and we get past this chaotic time, we'll be able to be with the other person so much more clearly, that we'll be able to have almost a deeper sense of connection and communication with people.
So why do you think people struggle? I mean, it seems so straightforward, right? Just, anyone who's read The Power of Now or studied anything, around this subject, they know it's not as straightforward, not as easy just to say, oh, I'm being present, right? Why do you think we have this kind of subconscious battle almost with being present? What's our subconscious afraid of? And maybe that's not the right term, but why do we struggle to sink into the depth of presence?
In one word, it's trauma. Now, trauma does not have to be trauma with a big T. It doesn't have to be, you were abused as a child, you were in a car accident, you had some big thing happen. When we're little children, we're so sensitive. Even a door slamming can be traumatic. Even a parent raising a voice can be traumatic. When we're little tiny children, whatever the big adults are doing, it's so amplified. They're like gods to us. So we can very easily get traumatized and get wounded. And then we make up all these stories around it. Oh, because I did this and my mom yelled at me, it means I'm not good, or it means I shouldn't do that, or it means I have to be extra good, or people won't like me. And we make up 1,000,001 of these little stories of what it means. And those meanings often don't really serve us. They might serve us as little children, but they don't serve us as adults. Yet we never go back to really question, is the meaning I'm making from this situation something that really helps me or empowers me and supports me? Or is it something that just keeps me stuck in the way I was when I was 6 years old? And so that's why I talk about doing that inner work. It means having to face those traumas. It means having to face sort of the uncomfortable things that we have inside of us, and really look at it and look at what are the stories we've made around those situations. The facts of the situation and what happened may be completely true, yet it's our interpretation that decides whether that situation will serve us or will it disempower us. And so many things disempower us when we're little children that we never really look at as adults. And as we kind of look and start sifting through and say, oh, that's a ridiculous story, I don't know why I still keep telling myself that story. This one is about my parents loving me. Okay, that supports me, that empowers me. This one, my brother picking on me. Okay, and instead of me interpreting that as being weak and that, men can't be trusted, it's that I'm strong enough and people feel safe enough to be honest around me so that I can hold that. There are all kinds of little stories like that. And that's kind of in my book. What I try and do is bring people on my journey of all these little aspects of life that just came up for me, and how I can change the story around them and reinterpret them in a way that empowers me, supports me, helps me to be more confident, helps me to be more aware of what's going on, so that when I connect with someone, when I have a conversation, when I see somebody sitting on the other side of that computer screen, I can touch, I can feel, my intuition is a little bit more aligned, and now I can make better choices. Now I can honor myself and honor the other person in a much more authentic way.
I know that you're an advocate. I don't know if that's not the right term, but I know that you truly believe in the concept of being a conscious entrepreneur or a conscious business owner. So is presence a subset of consciousness, or is consciousness a subset of presence?
I would say presence is a quality of consciousness.
Like it. Okay. So
Okay.
can you kind of go deeper into when you say being a conscious entrepreneur or a conscious business owner? What do you mean, and why do you believe it's so important that we understand this term and act from this beingness of being conscious?
And yeah, I would call myself almost a consciousness evangelist, if you will, because I believe in it so strongly. Because when we're more conscious as a person, we're more aware of how our actions and what we say and do affect other people, how it affects other people. And not just other people, but the environment around us. I'll say energetic environment, like if you ever gone to a meeting and a couple of people had just finished fighting and they're not fighting right now, but you could feel the tension in the air, right? That's our consciousness contributes to that energy of that get together. Or someone could have just told a great joke and you see everyone smiling and happy and you feel different that way. So what are we contributing to the environment? And then what are we contributing to the actual physical environment? You hear people talk about having a win-win situation, right? So it's good for me and it's good for you. And then they started talking about, well, as a business owner, if it's good for you and good for the customer and good for the employee, oh, that's a triple win. That's a triple bottom line. But actually, you can even spread that out further. It can be good for the company, good for the employees, good for the customers, and good for the planet. And the reason why this is so important is look around us. We are more interconnected than we have ever been before. One person's health in a distant land can affect our health today. What's going on in the environment? Look, I don't care whether you believe in climate change or not. That's not the point. It's, if we keep polluting our environment and keep making it toxic, we're going to make it unsustainable for us. But unsustainable practices actually cost us more in the long run. Many business owners, I would say, are not very conscious because they think doing dumping some toxic chemical into their backyard that, oh, no one's going to notice for 50 years and it's not going to cost us much. But what is it going to cost our children and our grandchildren? What's going to cost the community around there? What's it going to cost the government to clean it up? There are all kinds of costs associated with putting things off till tomorrow. But when we're more conscious, we don't put things off until tomorrow. We look at, how do I make this sustainable? Because in the end, sustainable businesses make more money. They're more profitable. They have a better reputation. They open more doors for you. And it just, people prefer to work for and to purchase from more socially conscious, more sustainable companies. It's just a fact.
So let me. I want to kind of challenge you, kind of a gentle pushback in here, right?
Sure.
I see what I believe to be out there in the advertising world, the marketing world, a lot of unconscious stuff. When I say that's not the right word, a lot of misleading stuff,
Hmm.
right? And
Absolutely.
we know it's existing because people are buying into that, right?
Absolutely.
Marketers wouldn't use these unethical methods of selling stuff if people were not falling for that, right?
Right.
So, when you say that people are actively looking for more conscious people to buy from, can you explain how that works in terms of this other side where it's not conscious whatsoever, and maybe it's not, maybe it is conscious, it's consciously defrauding people, right?
Right.
So can you kind of explain the difference here between, and I'm going to use this kind of a Star Wars reference, bit of a geek here. There's the light side of consciousness and maybe a dark side,
Dark side.
right?
Sure.
Both sides are conscious, right?
Right.
And both sides could be even present, but there are very distinct ways people are operating right now.
Right.
I hear it. Yeah. So please share your thoughts on that.
So people can be manipulative regardless of how conscious they are ardent. We can be manipulated. We can be manipulated. However, when you look at a company's actions, maybe you'll buy in because it's a cheap price or you think you need it. But as soon as that company does something that gets them in trouble, they get some bad PR, some bad press, there's no loyalty. People jump ship. Or another company comes out with maybe almost the same product, but it's a cheaper price. And the quality might not quite be as good, but because we've been manipulated into thinking, oh, price is the best thing, okay, I'll just go with the cheaper competitor. And then it's a race to the bottom, right? We're just constantly looking for, how do I get the goods cheapest? Yet, if there's another company that does the exact same thing, but is more conscious, more aware, even they get into a little bit of trouble, they own it, and they don't hide from it. They don't try and blame other people, but they take responsibility for it. It creates more loyalty. So the people who are patronizing that company, they're not going to leave so quickly, and they're not going to go to somebody else just because the price is cheaper. I mean, and again, it's like, given the choice, if they're selling the exact same thing at the same price or even a slight difference, but one company donates to some charity that you believe in, or one company has a better reputation for being an employer of choice in the marketplace, you're going to naturally lean in that way because we all want that kind of stuff in our lives. It's a natural human tendency. Again, sometimes we're not aware of it. We're not awake to it. So advertisers and marketers and people can manipulate us, but that manipulation only lasts so long and it only goes so far.
Right. So basically it's the importance of long-term thinking and, versus short-term, let's make a quick few bucks.
I mean, look, how did Japan come back from being devastated in World War II to being one of the top 3 or 5 leading world economies in the 80s and 90s? Because they took a very long-term view. I remember a bunch of books I read around quality. In Japan, they planned for the next 100 years, while here in the United States, we were just planning for the next quarter.
Right.
And so that difference in perspective, it allows us to come to different decisions, and it allows us to have a different perspective. And we can even see it in our own life. Like when something happens to us in the immediate, we might feel like, oh my God, this is awful. I can't believe this happened. Like, let's say, oh, I got fired from this company because of, oh, this is awful. This is horrible. What am I going to do? But then you keep at it, you work, you apply for jobs, and you find a job, and actually you end up in a company that maybe you enjoy the people you work with even better.
Yeah.
But then a few years go by, and then not only you're feeling better, but a new opportunity comes that you never would have been exposed to if you hadn't gotten fired, and now it seems even better. And sort of the longer and longer view we take of things in our own lives, the more the quality of it shifts and changes. So if we can start with that long-term view, then we can be less surprised by what happens over the long term.
Wow, that's awesome. This is such a deep topic, and we could go into this. Could be a few hours of conversation. Now, this video is going to be shared into, what I believe would be a couple of conscious communities. Okay.
Yeah.
And that brings me to a topic of community. Why do you feel it's important that entrepreneurs, and maybe you don't, but why, I know that you believe in the importance of a community. And I think
Absolutely.
if you're going to pick a community, may as well be a conscious community, or at least the leadership should be conscious. So why do you think it's important to be part of a community that has a leadership that, buys into the principles of consciousness, presence, authenticity?
Because the natural human tendency is to look at what the leader is doing, and then people fall in line unconsciously, whether they want to or not. So when you have a conscious leader, then the environment within the community is different. It feels safer. People feel like it's better to be themselves. They're more motivated to actually contribute more of their own talents to what's going on. But if you're in an environment where you're afraid for your job and you're scared of your boss, fear only takes us so far. I mean, I remember back, I've been an entrepreneur since 93, but before that, for 9 years, I worked in corporations. I worked on Wall Street. I worked for different kinds of financial institutions. And I remember in the middle of that, I worked at I went from one bank to another bank. And in the beginning, I was kind of happy, but then I got reorganized, and now I was working underneath a manager who I totally did not trust. Like, this guy had just a slimy feel to him. He'd stab you in the back in an instant. He'd take credit for your work. Like, no, within 9 months, I started looking for another job. I was out of there in 13 months. It was the shortest I ever worked in a company, because how could I work and be productive and contribute if I can't even trust the person I report to?
Right. Absolutely. So Sam, so I know that you've taken 6 years of wisdom nuggets. You put some of the best things into your book. So first of all, why should someone pick up your book and dive into it?
So the way this book is put together, they're like very short little essay reads. And it's kind of the book I look at like you just randomly flip open to a page and it gives you a little nugget, a little something for you to think about in a different perspective, perhaps a more empowering way. Like, I just flipped open to this page. It's section 69. It says, "Presence leads us to connection, which brings us to community."
I love that. What a way to wrap up this conversation.
And so it's kind of like one of these books that you don't necessarily have to read all the way through linearly, going from point A to point B, but it's sort of a reference book where, like, you're maybe dealing with something in your life, or you're struggling with something, or you're not quite sure how to deal with something, and then you pick it up, you flip open to a page, and there's going to be a message that is going to be right for you, and it'll give you a different take on things, a different perspective you hadn't thought of, that can empower you to feel like you have more choice. The subtitle of the book is "You Are More Powerful Than You Know." And that's really what I want people to get from this, is that we are all much more powerful than we know, and we don't even realize it, because of the possibilities, because of our decisions, our choices. And when we start to own more of our power, then we can actually contribute more, we can be more present, more productive, and more importantly, we can be kinder to ourselves and to others, and create a community that encourages everyone to contribute their best, and encourage everyone to really give it their most authentic and their heart and soul, and not just their body, to be there for 8 hours a day.
Wow, that was a perfect way to kind of bring the show to an end. So Sam, if someone wants to pick up your book, what's the best place to go to?
So I created a link that'll take you straight to the ebook on Amazon. It's www.everydayawakeningbook.com. All one long word spelled out. And that will take you right to the Kindle version. Now, if you're like me, I happen to love paperback. So if you go to, it's again, my book's all over the place. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, whatever your favorite, even in the independent. This is a self-published book, so even the independent bookstores are going to carry it. But just look for Everyday Awakening. It's a paperback as well as Kindle. Sorry, I didn't do an audio version yet. Maybe next year. But yeah, it's all over online. And I got a special offer for your listeners. Once you go and you purchase the book, go to my website, theconsciousconsultant.com. And when you go to the link that says Sam's book, and you put in your name, your email address, and your receipt number from purchasing the book, you'll get access to a whole bunch of free gifts and discounts worth close to $3,000, different meditations and programs and different things that people who've given me testimonials for the book contributed because they believed in what I put together. And I've gotten so much positive comments and feedback from people, and people I really respect, people I hold in high esteem, who've said, I stayed up until 2 a.m. in the morning reading your book. It's wonderful. It's great. I was like, oh, really? Because when we're creating something ourselves, you're never quite sure how much value it really has until someone on the outside who maybe doesn't know you quite as well gives you some feedback and says, hey, this is really good, and makes you feel, oh, good. I got something.
Sam, thanks so much for spending some time with us and talking to us about the importance of presence to build connection that will then allow us to be part of conscious communities, to allow us to kind of see our way through this chaos, through the challenges that many of us are facing as entrepreneurs and business owners, and hopefully to some area of calm in our lives that we can find more success while not losing our hair. In the world.
Yes, absolutely.
Sam, again, thanks so much, buddy, for joining us. And folks, if you're listening to this or watching this, please go ahead and click on the links to find your way to Sam's book. There's so much wisdom he's sharing in that book. And again, it's really about reframing how we think and how we do things so that we can live a much more conscious life, especially if we're entrepreneurs where challenges are coming at us fast and furious right now in this current times. Sam, again, thanks so much for joining us, buddy.
Thank you, Vijay. A real pleasure. And thank you to everyone listening to it. And if you like the things you've heard, please share it with your friends. I really want to support people as much as possible in this time. So that's the way we do it, by sharing the things we like.
Thank you. So folks, we say our end of the show. It's time